Many people are going to tell you that this is not a good thing for the Atlanta Falcons, that the Atlanta Falcons had a horrible draft, that they made one of the worst draft selections in the history of the NFL and NFL drafting. And while it may be confusing to some, and while there may be an unorthodox and creative and out-of-the-box type of thinking going on in Atlanta, someone like me is very, very prone to make such moves and to suggest such moves. In fact, we came on here and consistently talked about this from the New York Jet perspective, that the New York Jets at this number 10 overall pick should have been looking to grab Michael Penix Jr. And we would have got the same reaction out of everybody to a little bit lesser degree probably if this happened. If there was like a certain situation that unfolded that was New York Jet related with the quarterback, we'd see people react not as harshly because of the big contract that Cousins just got, but to a certain degree. This is a move I would make. I think people are absolutely out of their minds to be this hard on the Atlanta Falcons, suggesting that they blew their season, that they're the Falcons of the Falcons. And even more importantly than any of that is that from a fantasy football perspective, I'm a content creator. Yes, I'm an NFL news show. I pride myself in that. I really, really do. I love being a show somebody can go watch for news content alone. Even if they didn't play fantasy, they watch my 8 p.m. show Monday through Friday because I believe we bring the news better than anybody. And on top of that, though, we are called the Fantasy Football Show. On top of that, the people complaining, griping, moaning, the upset Caleb's and complaining Caleb's and the petrified Peters of this Atlanta Falcon offense, these people that are saying this is ridiculous from a content creating fantasy football perspective, I don't know what they're thinking. Why would this be bad in the fantasy football space? How could anybody say doubling up on quarterbacks, getting the bunk beds out, having these two guys become best friends, more room for activities? How in the hell is this a bad thing from a fantasy perspective? I don't care if the team might be slightly better at edge rusher. Find a sleeper. Coach it up. This is the most secure quarterback room in the National Football League. And when you have assets like Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London that have been neglected and don't have they don't have the luxury of waiting another year if injuries should strike this guy who is 36 years old and coming back from an Achilles tear. This is probably going to go down as one of the most untalked about things by people that throw shade at it that we've ever seen. The people that disappear and vanish and spread all these negative vibes about something like this and then vanish the first moment it works out. This is a very, very, very different but genius move for a team that says we can't go without a quarterback. The New York Jets should be saying the same thing. The New York Jets have a window. The New York Jets could win a Super Bowl in the next 2 or 3 years. And they need a quarterback. And they got a quarterback, by the way. They did a similar move just later on, less draft capital. It's a fantastic move. But I find this quite funny how up in arms people are, specifically in the fantasy football space, when it's the most genius thing, the best gift a Bijan, a London, or Kyle Pitts owner could have received. It's absolutely head-scratching to me. The Fantasy Football Show begins now.
Live from the FantasyFootballShow.com studios. It's the Fantasy Football Show. Live! Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Smitty is also live whenever news breaks.
No one's saying that it would have been maybe a little bit better for the now production or the right out of the gate type of thinking to bring in an edge rusher, to bring in somebody that would have assisted this team to win simultaneously with Kirk Cousins on the field, okay? I don't think anybody's going to argue that there aren't advantages to not using this number 8 overall pick on Michael Penix Jr. I get where people are coming from, but at the same time, I'm willing to, this is how my mind works, I'm willing to sacrifice some depth somewhere or filling a lineup spot even, and go bargain hunting, coach up the position, find a deep sleeper, which I believe the Falcons did a fine job in this draft doing what they did and having the extra security. Not to mention, think about it from this perspective. When we heard this from the team, we heard this from people after the fact. I think some commentators came around that were really hard on the Falcons initially. They don't plan on losing. They don't plan on having a bad record. They don't plan on being in the top 10 for the next decade or more. So when Kirk Cousins, 36-year-old Achilles tear, ends up walking away, maybe he even starts to look bad. Does anybody ever stop to think he might play one good year? And they have him really essentially on a 2-year deal. It's like 2 years essentially guaranteed. They could walk away from this pretty unscathed after 2 years. Has anybody thought for a second that a 36-year-old quarterback might look like a quarterback you don't even want starting for you after maybe 2 years of play? And I know people say he's older. He's still going to be plenty young to play a 10, 12, 14 season type of career. And it's really crazy to me that people are this up in arms about it, that they're getting this massive, like they're taking a lot of heat, getting massively horrible draft grades. Everybody's giving them an F, a F minus, a D minus. I haven't seen a C or a B or an A. Of course, no one's going to give them an A. I don't think I'd even give them an A because it's something that it's going to take some heat. It's got to take some creativity. And you have to land the sleepers and coach up the players. But if you do that, in retrospect, it could be an A. Because if this guy is the Brock Purdy for them, and let's say this works out for a year, or let's say Kirk Cousins comes out and gets injured right away, this move, despite what some will say, paying him so much money, what a waste, no one's going to care if Penix Jr. steps in and becomes a monster. The only thing I'm going to say here is this. I don't know that I'd even want to go down this road more so than the road we're going down right now. But one could say that, if you could go back in time and they knew Penix Jr. would fall there, they started to fall in love with Penix Jr. probably after they even signed Kirk Cousins. So some of this evolved, and even if you could press a button and undo the Kirk Cousins contract, would they do it? I don't know that they would, because I feel like at the end of the day, even with just one quarterback, you're not securing up what you believe to be a closing window at some point for Kyle Pitts, who has to be developed at some point. You can't just continue to stunt his growth. Bijan Robinson, same thing. Yeah, running backs have a 4 to 5 to 6 year shelf life, and he just got wasted away his rookie year. And Drake London, same thing. Drake London wasted away another year. So there is a closing window, even though this team's very young and it feels like it's just getting going. There's closing windows happening here. And they probably don't care. Think about it from this perspective. Everybody getting crazy up in this mug about this. Maybe they don't care about 2024 spending and 2025 spending. What they want is, once it comes time to re-up on London, to maybe even look at Bijan again, maybe look at Kyle Pitts and a few other pieces of this team, they have to have a cheap quarterback like the Brock Purdy situation in San Francisco, so they can continue to build in unfair ways for other teams looking from the outside looking in. This is the most genius move in some ways that's getting overlooked by so many pundits out there, and people just running their mouth, yapping their mouth, hearing what other people are saying, and afraid to come out and say this. People are afraid to say that this is a good move. This is a genius move. This is wrapped up in a lot of, I would say, unorthodox thinking. This is wrapped up in a very bold type of thinking. And some people cannot handle that well. Why do you think we get so many haters on this show? Because we're bold. We're outside of the box. We do something like this. We do boldly quarterback draft strategies in best ball. We do boldly tight end draft strategies in best ball. We do boldly quarterback that's drafting 2 QBs in a 1 QB best ball league. Not in redraft. That's stupid. where you try and control the market and trade a quarterback. There's no trading in best ball. It's called bully quarterback because you're essentially bullying everybody around by scooping up 2 of the best quarterbacks. And in best ball, the best quarterback each week starts for you. You can't miss on starting the right one. So in best ball, it's different. Underdog Fantasy promo code Smitty. They'll double your first deposit up to $100. And here's the link. We'll be doing so many drafts here as soon as the Best Ball Mania is open. So here is the link right here. Promo code Smitty. Click that link. Sign up now. But we're bold. We're ahead of the curve. I'll do a bully best ball double QB, 1 QB type draft. Double QB, double tight end in the same draft. We're bold. We're out. We think outside of the box. Penix Jr. This is quietly genius. Think what you want. Think what you want. And it doesn't even matter. That's kind of my point here. Why are you really here? Majority of you are here for the NFL news and just the entertainment factor of the NFL, right? You're a fantasy football player, but maybe this is your daily listen. And I take very much pride and enjoyment that this is some of your favorite, listening material. And that it gets you through your day. Maybe I tuck some of you in at night. That's fantastic for me. That makes me feel better than you can imagine. But a lot of you are here for fantasy football. So the fact that there are fantasy football content creators and analysts out there complaining about this instead of propping it up, complaining about this instead of celebrating it, talking down on this, making fun of the Falcons instead of celebrating it. There is no better situation for Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and also Drake London than having 2 quarterbacks, especially with what they've all endured and what we've all endured. It's asinine. It's ridiculous, and you can call in and tell me what you think. And dare I say this, and you might say, well, then why would you want Kirk Cousins to spend all that money? Safety net. And if they don't care about spending the money in 2 years, a 2-year window, then I don't care. But here's what I'm going to predict, and this is, you might say this, I'm telling you in advance what you're probably going to say to me. Then why spend the money? I'm going to say I don't care. They can spend the money if they want. This is my prediction. I think at some point at 36 years old, coming back from an Achilles tear, Kirk Cousins misses some time. Calf strain. Something to do with the calf. Calf turns into Achilles tear. Your calf is connected to your Achilles, essentially turns into your Achilles. That's why when Aaron Rodgers was wearing the calf sleeve, had the calf injury, remember, and tore his Achilles, it's a big deal. It's an indicator of a potential Achilles rupture that is at least in the realm of possibility of happening. I predict some sort of calf injury, which will shelve him immediately because they'll have to be very careful with it, right? Penix Jr. comes in. Penix Jr. comes in, plays well. Next week, we're gonna keep an eye on Kirk Cousins. He's not ready yet. Penix Jr. comes in, plays well. We're gonna keep an eye on Penix Jr. He's not quite ready yet. Cousins. He's not quite ready yet. Penix Jr. is gonna go out and start again. Cousins is not quite ready yet. He's gonna sit out another week. Okay. Penix Jr. goes in, plays well again. Yeah, we're still waiting on Cousins' results, and we're not sure when he'll be ready. And at some point, when Penix Jr. is playing so well, no one's going to care when the news really flips to, we're going to ride Penix Jr. We're going to ride the Penix train. We're going to get on that Penix train, that big Penix energy, and we're going to ride it into the season. And you might not be here for it. You might be here to hate on it. You, Bob, complaining Caleb, angry Angus, doubting Donnie. Doubting Donnie might be in here. A lot of you might be sitting here going, I'm just going to predict bad downfall for this. You are, my friend, at the beginning stages of digging a hole for yourself. And I'm going to stop you right in your tracks. And I'm going to ask you to stop digging. I'm going to ask you not to put your receipts out there. I'm going to ask you not to dig at least so deep. That way, because my job is to help make you a better fantasy football player, I don't want you to dig such a hole that you feel you have to keep digging and throwing more good after bad. I want you to be comfortable enough to say, I didn't throw that much shade at this. I didn't dig that much of a hole. I can kind of back out and say, you know what? I kind of like this. Penix Jr. is doing well. I think this was a good move. The worst thing you could do, the worst step you could take is to continue to dig this very deep hole, judge this situation, and then your bias is going to take control of you, and you're going to later on try and continue to doubt this as it unfolds in a positive direction. This is the future. Anybody saying this was a dumb pick, if the Falcons, those people need to shut their trap. Because if the Falcons believe this is their future star, and yes, they already committed a bunch of money to him, but they fell in love with the prospect. And they said to themselves, this is our future. If they believe he is their future, and maybe they only use Cousins for 1 year, then they have a glorified, overpaid backup quarterback that gives this team the ability to not be scared of anything. And that's really all that matters to this team. Who cares? Why is it your problem? Why is anybody even upset that this team has two amazing quarterback options? Why on earth, after everything that Falcons fans, Falcons players, and Falcons fantasy football owners, after everything we endured last year, not having a quarterback, how is this a problem? Thomas with a $2 says, Smitty, this is Thomas again. Do I take MHJ at 14 and Wilson at 11? I don't know what to tell you because I'm not on the clock and you haven't given me other options. Like, I still think you might not get Marvin Harrison at 14 anymore. I don't know. If this is redraft, then I suppose I don't mind that. I'd almost rather have a balanced team if balance is available. If best player available allows you to get balance, get Gibbs at 11, get Kyron at 11. If Kyron starts to fall ADP-wise, you could get Kyron at 14, and you could go Wilson and Kyron if you want. But Kyron's probably going to be maybe available in the third round based on the freak out Freddies. I don't know. I don't know where Kyron's. We're going to have to get good ADP data. We're waiting for Underdog. That's the only ADP data I trust because people are throwing good money at the draft, so you get a really good sense of what people are really doing. You're not getting dumb mock draft data that gets completely jostled around as people quit the draft after 2 rounds, and then the auto draft continues to pile bad data onto the ADP because that's what happens. Somebody leaves in round 2 or 3 because they're an impatient Ian, and then the auto draft takes over, and then the ADP drives the rest of the draft and piles on more bad data. You want a draft where people stay the entirety of the draft. They're paying customers. That's why the Underdog ADP is the best. We'll see if Kyron needs to be taken at 14 anymore. I don't think he does. I'm not worried a single bit. I hope people drive him into the third round. At the end of the day, bro, give me Gibbs if he's there in MHJ. But there's nothing wrong with... God, part of me wants like Kyron and MHJ. You know what I mean? I'd have to know who's on the clock, Thomas. Give me some options. Give me an option at number 11. Give me 3 guys. And give me an option at number 14, 3 guys. I don't mind this. You've asked me this before. I don't mind Garrett Wilson. I don't. But I also don't mind going RB. If you're going to get MHJ, I don't mind going RB, bro. Ricky, Space Ricky says, we like drafting wide receivers in fantasy with 2 QBs. Exactly. It's ridiculous to me. MHJ is an absolute phenom in the making, bro. And on that note, I give you the MHJ music video. Are you guys ready for the MHJ music video?
I'm a Cardinal, hey, I'm a Cardinal. 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 I'm a Cardinal, hey, I'm a Cardinal.
The Cardinals look to be rising, and MHJ is your king.
I'm a Cardinal.
This man is MHJ. This man is the Dynasty wide receiver 1 for this man right here. And MHJ, to me, is going to soon start becoming a staple at the 12-13 turn. So for guys like Thomas that want to know if he's there at 14, I don't know if he'll be there at 14. I really don't know. It's possible that Kyren falls to 3-point whatever. Now, granted, you've got, close first and second round picks, so your third round pick is going to be quite a ways down. I don't think you'll get Kyren there. I still have no problem going Kyren and MHJ. I have no problem going Gibbs and MHJ. I have no problem going Garrett Wilson and MHJ. But I'm not somebody that wants to force wide receiver, and it sounds like maybe you do, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I personally don't need to do that. So, did I buy my MHJ jersey yet? No, I have not. I have not. I did refresh my Cardinals hat. I had a filthy Cardinal hat, and I did refresh the Cardinal hat. I went and just got a refresh of all the new era hats. So, we've got several new era hats all over the place up in this mug, and we just rotate through them with whatever topic we're talking, But we did get the new updated new era hats. They're fantastic. These are really, really sweet hats, to be honest. I love the NFL logo on the back. That looks really sick. And I love the feel of these. I love the feel. They feel so fantastic. I love the very subtle colors. It's a really nice hat. Falcons are NFC title game 2024, says Peanut Butter and Waivers. Okay, dial up into the phone line. Dial into the attic phone lines.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
Matt O wants an Adunze jersey. Smitty going all AI with these aren't AI, baby. These are all natural. There's no AI involved. Wide receivers looking good this year. Everybody want to be on the wide receiver wave this year. Even more of a reason, Togo, to go running back wide receiver or running back if you dare. There's nothing wrong with going running back. Even these best ball garbage, look, wide receivers, the main reason you almost don't, it's really hard to go wide receiver in best ball underdog fantasy promo code Smitty. It's not because technically speaking you can't win that way. It's because everybody thinks you have to go wide receiver, and some go wide receiver over and over and over. And that presents a problem trying to get wide receivers. So that makes it a little bit easier to say, I'd rather go balanced if I can. Have I gone running back? You bet your bottom dollar. I've gone Kyren and Gibbs. I've gone Breece Hall and Gibbs. Kyren's going to fall, so we'll see where he goes in the Best Ball Mania once it opens up. I imagine he's going to fall pretty good. I'm real excited about trying out some of these new strategies with Kyren falling, with Achane potentially falling, with all the concern and freak out Freddies. So I feel like I'm definitely always going to be a best player available, but that best player available can be predictable at certain draft slots, and say that in general, best player available is going to likely lead me into potentially liking running back wide receiver, or wide receiver running back, or running back. With Kyren's new fall, with Achane's new fall, I'm very much more tempted to go running back wide receiver, or wide receiver running back, versus running back. But don't listen to anybody that tells you you can't win going wide receiver or running back. It's so stupid to me when someone tries to tell you that you can't land sleeper wide receivers in the 4th and 5th and 6th round that way outperform. It's up to you, not up to anybody else. It's up to you to land those players. And if you believe, let's say, Devontae Smith's going to have a top 6 wide receiver season, and A.J. Brown's going to struggle with knee injuries, if you believe DK is going to have this huge, monstrous season, and that he's going to prove everybody wrong that's been doubting him, and I'm not necessarily coining those guys as my champions for round 3 wide receiver, your first wide receiver taken strategy, round 4 as your second wide receiver taken strategy. Those aren't necessarily my champions, but if we throw them out there, who's to say your wide receiver in round 3 as your 1, your wide receiver 2 in round 4 as your 2, and your wide receiver later don't outscore the Excel sheet Eric who goes wide receiver in rounds 1, 2, and 3, and now you crush him at RB. If I get Gibbs and Breece Hall, which I've done several times in a best ball draft, it's not as easy anymore because Hall's going higher and higher and higher. But Hall, with the addition of Braylon Allen, with the addition of Malachi Corley, dare I say he could slip back into a territory where you might just get Jahmyr Gibbs and Hall. You might just get a combination of two guys. I'm not afraid to go Devontae Smith and DK. I've gotten Debo and DK before. I've gotten Devontae Smith and Debo before. I'm not scared of any of that. Those can be my two. Well, I'm sorry, the phone lines were open. Hold on. Dial in.
Call into the show. Call into the show.
Sorry about that. The phone lines were closed. I thought they were open. They are now back open. Dial in, dial in, dial in. Sorry, Travis. Try again. Matt O, if you're dialing in, try again. Jeremy, what's up? 10-team, 1 quarterback flex is too long of a question. I'm going to try and hit anyway. I picked one. I don't know, bro. I'm thinking of going Harrison, Neighbors, Brooks. I do have this bad boy. Check this out. It's a Patrick Peterson, but unbelievable. Look at that! Look at that! Look at that! Sick looking black helmet. All right, sorry, Travis. I didn't mean to. I thought I had the phone lines open. They weren't open. What's up, my guy?
No, it's all good. The whole people panicking or not understanding Penix and giving them an F or a grade. I understand like they need a pass rush and their rushing defense, against the rush was, bottom half or whatever, but their like pass defense was good and their overall defense was like top 12, somewhere around that, like getting close to top 10. And they just hired Raheem Morris, who is a defensive guy. So I trust him to be able to coach it up, and I would think that if they're looking like a legit playoff team, they'll trade. There's always a pass rusher or two, you can trade for at the trade deadline. Like I know Chase Young wasn't huge for the 49ers, but even a guy with the talent like Chase Young was out there last year. So I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, I don't get at all, bro. Why? Like, okay, again, if we say to ourselves from a football perspective, which honestly, some of these content creators, like, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to tell them what to do. Like, you create content however you want. A lot of people do want to hear your total NFL, analysis.
Sure.
We do non-fantasy football content and segments and full-blown shows. Some of the new shows don't have much fantasy at all. We're just talking about the teams, and we do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's so crazy. It's so crazy to me that that most of these people have no caveats. No, hey, this is a dumb move by NFL standards, but hey, for fantasy, at least we have this safety net here. Like, I feel like no one's talking about it. And I wanted to do this video earlier, but I felt like the handcuff videos or the Blake Corum, Braylon Allen, and Jalen Wright to Achane, Breece Hall, and Kyron was a more important string of videos to do because there's panic going on. And this isn't really affecting anything right now. It's just more of like people making fun of it. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. How in the hell you could think that there's a problem here? That this isn't the best thing that was ever gifted to you if you're a fantasy football player. Now, the only thing I'll say is it sucks that we don't get Cousins and Penix Jr. both starting at the same time all year long because that gives us an extra quarterback. So, like, example, Penix Jr. goes to the Las Vegas Raiders and has a thriving career immediately. Cousins has 2 great years. But to be honest with you, I'm not saying Adams is garbage or anything this year, but Adams is a ticking time bomb. He's an older player. Penix Jr. could have gone there, and that's really the only other spot I can think of at the moment. I guess New Orleans, but it doesn't sound like they wanted to go that route. They actually got Rattler. That's pretty interesting. So we'll see where that goes. That might end up being okay anyway. So the only situation would maybe be Las Vegas. And I guess if you ask me to turn back the clock and make the Falcons either not sign Kirk Cousins and he goes to the Raiders, or not draft Penix Jr. and Cousins stays with the Falcons and Penix Jr. goes to the Raiders to give us more of a fantasy football formula for success for everybody involved, I don't think I would turn back the time and undo it myself, because it's more important to me that Bijan, Pitts, and London are protected than it is for Adams to be protected. Because Adams is not somebody that I'm loving drafting in the second round anyway. And as much as I want Bowers to have a QB, that's going to be okay in time. Minshew might be able to feed him enough anyway. I'm all about this Falcons team, and it's just crazy, bro. People are just wild.
And from a football perspective, I think people really don't quite understand yet how good Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson are probably going to be together. And then from a fantasy perspective, like you said, the only reason to be annoyed or upset is that you would want Penix and Kirk Cousins. But it makes a really interesting, dynasty situation, being able to grab a Penix and have him just sitting there waiting to explode,
Yeah. Interesting, bro. It's interesting. It's interesting to see, and I'm definitely okay hearing like other perspectives, but I don't know. None of it makes sense, you know. None of it.
And I mean, I get the knee-jerk reaction of, they could have taken, Dallas Turner or one of these edge rushers or something for, immediate help right there. But what's more valuable to your team if you're trying to build a team that's going to compete for years?
Yeah.
You can find an edge rusher, you can coach those schemes up, especially, like I said, with Raheem Morris there, and with a defense that was already better than people realized last year.
Yeah, somebody's wanting to know the number. The number's right here. Hold on one second. Okay, so anybody that has what's up, media? We got 49ers media in the building. I'm sure he has something to say about the Niners. You can call in, media, if you want to talk Niners. I'm ready for you if you want. I don't necessarily need to get negative on the 49ers and not the Niners, but on Shanahan. We talk too much about it, but what do you think happens do you think that Kirk Cousins stays healthy, number one? And that's kind of a tough thing to predict. I mean, but he's 36 years old, and if Penix Jr. wasn't drafted, we wouldn't be like sitting here picking this apart and going, he's 36 years old with an Achilles tear. So I admit there's some bias involved as we start to kind of maybe pry into, a place in our hearts we wouldn't have. Like if it was just Kirk Cousins and we're all just sitting here going, I hope for Bijan, I hope for London, I hope for Pitts he stays healthy, but I don't think we dig into it, we pry into it. I don't think we start projecting injury or anything like that. So it's kind of a messed up place to be to start looking at that now. Like, how convenient. I admit that there's some bias there, but I also very much said to everybody throughout the entirety of the free agent process that we were looking at a quarterback in Kirk Cousins that was not my first choice to go to Atlanta. I was plenty happy to get some sort of solution at all, but I don't think he deserved as big of a contract as he got because he's 36 coming off an Achilles tear. I believe he deserved another chance in a pretty good big bag, but he got paid bank without even being like healthy. It was kind of like weird to me, and I'm not gonna lie. And now that Penix Jr. is on the table here as far as a potential quarterback, piece for this team. They don't have to be scared about the Achilles. They can run him out there, not really worry about anything. But at some point, this is going to be a problem because you can't put Penix Jr. in the game and then take him out. I don't think you can unless he played badly. If he goes in and he plays bad, like let's say he goes in and he has a mediocre day and Cousins is ready the next week, boom, you could throw him back in and kind of just act like it never happened and no one will really say anything. If he goes out there and lights it up, has 3 touchdowns, 330 yards, maybe an INT, they win the game. They're interviewing him after the game. What a nice fourth quarter touchdown strike. And like, there's no way you take him out. You just can't. You would just say Cousins is still banged up. We're gonna take it day by day. He's gonna miss one more week. We're not sure when he'll be back. Miss one more week. Not sure when he'll be back. Over and over and over until it becomes evident, and no one's gonna care if you say, guess what? Cousins ain't coming back, or he's going to remain the backup for now. But I guess, and we already explored his contract. You can't really trade him. Like, you definitely can't trade him this year because the dead cap was like $90 million, I think it was. And the next year, it's still pretty high. So he's essentially a glorified backup if he ever hits the bench for 2 years with an out after the year 2. I guess my bigger question here is this. Do the Falcons screw this up by not allowing him to even be active? In a sense, like, do they run away from the drama or do they not care and just say, let it ride? If they're smart, they will not stand in the way of what's meant to be here. I think that's where I might have a problem with the Atlanta Falcons. You might hear me come in and be irate about them from a very objective and honest perspective if they try and stand in the way of this situation. You've got to let this guy be your number 2. You just took him in the top 8. You have to let him be the number 2. You can't worry about this guy's feelings. You can't worry about him crumbling. If he takes his job, so be it. But if you don't make him active, you try and spread this thing out as far as you can, you might miss a window when this guy shows he's ready to explode. So they can't be in a spot where Cousins goes down in the middle of a game and they lose the game and they have the best backup in the league. Like, that's the part that's going to drive me nuts. I hope they don't do that. I guess that's my greater question to you.
I think because they took him so high, they're not going to do that. Like, I think them be willing to take him and not even really tell Cousins, and just push everything else to the side and take him 8th. I think they're invested in him, and not from a money standpoint, but from they believe in him as the future quarterback of that team. Because unless you're just completely stupid and screwing things up, you don't take a guy in the top 10 unless you believe he's your future.
I hope you're right, bro. I hope you're right. And while we're talking Falcons, I can put on the new era Falcons hat. Little Bijan. Should we hit a little Bijan? Hold on. Here's a little Bijan.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special message from the Bruce's mother.
Get Bijan.
Bijan. Bro, I go to sleep and sleep like a baby now when it comes to London, my London shares, my Kyle Pitts shares, my Bijan shares. This double bunk bed QB drafting nonsense that everybody calls it is the thing that makes me sleep like a baby at night. So I could care less what anybody says. I could care less how many content creators in the world think this is the dumbest draft ever. I could give 2 shits about that. All I know is I sleep like a baby. And I wouldn't undo it if you allowed me to press the button. Does that make me an idiot? If you're watching and you think I'm an idiot, fine. I don't care. I wouldn't undo it if there was a button here right now to undo it and draft the edge rusher that everybody wanted. I get it. I wouldn't do it. Give me the security. Not to mention, not just fantasy, the long-term value of having your quarterback you believe in. Like, if anybody, this only can go one way, in my opinion. the Falcons are admitting they maybe regret signing him to the long-term extension because they had a late love affair with this quarterback right here in the prospecting process. And if you want to say that, fine. Like, I understand that you're saying they may have jumped the gun in fear that they wouldn't get the quarterback they want, and later on develop their desire to have this guy be their long-term option. But what do you want them to do? Run away from that truth and say, hey, let's just keep the 36-year-old old man that has an Achilles tear, and let's just go into 2025 and 2026 maybe holding our breath. I think people are overreacting.
And that's one of the biggest things they always say about teams, the other way around, where it's, if you've made a mistake, and I know it's hard to do because guys are afraid of losing their jobs and all that extra stuff, but if a team's made a mistake, cut your losses. Don't drag it on for 2 more years or something. And with this situation, like you said, they had, a late love affair, quote unquote, with it. Rather than just saying, oh, we shouldn't do that. They realized, okay, this is something here, and they stuck with it. And they still went forward with it, even though they had to. So those are the reasons why I have confidence that they will, stick with him and do the things the right way. And if, like you said, if he gets into a game and he's tearing it up in a good way, they're not going to go back to Kirk. I really don't think so.
Yeah. And while they can't move him, for those suggesting that, Sebastian, we went over that the other night. We thought maybe the dead cap wasn't as bad, but we looked at it. It was $90 million. They can't move him. You can get out in year 2, after year 2, but you're basically married to him as a quarterback on your roster for at least 2 years, which, to be honest with you, like, the way I look at it, and this is up to the team to spend the money this way, but if you said to me, look at it like an allowance in a way. Let's say you got your dad gave you so much allowance each week, and if you didn't use it, you lose it. You lost it. Okay, so you'd lose it. So you have X number of dollars for year 1, X number of dollars for year 2, and it's kind of like in an auction draft. You've got an extra $20, and you can either blow it and get an upgrade on Breece Hall, or later on regret that you're going to have $20 extra and you have a player like Joe Mixon. And if you just constructed it, reverse engineered it, and threw that $20 on the Joe Mixon number that you spent, you could get Breece Hall. And you're like, why did I just spend the $20 on Breece Hall? It's kind of like, in a way, this team is saying we're going to overspend for security. And it is what it is. You can rip on it if you want. You could say we could have used it for other pieces, but we have faith in our staff and our development that we can get what we wanted to get out of this number 8 overall draft selection through this, and this. And if it comes to an edge rusher, or it comes to a lineman or a defensive piece, who's to say that this Falcons team didn't have a conversation, not going to share everything with us, and said, hey, I think quietly, like we do here, this guy we get in round 2, 3 is maybe even as good as the guys going at edge right here and here. And they said, let's take Penix. Apples to apples, Penix Jr. and edge rusher. Who did they end up selecting? It'll be interesting to watch. What's his name?
How do you say his name?
Let's see here. Got some. Let's see here.
Cora Oro. They took him a second. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, I just wanted to see. I was forgetting who they took. I'm still like in fog mode of all these players.
Second.
Finding their new homes, and then let me put their draft on the screen here. So yeah, it was. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. They were looking at a couple things. A lot of people wanted edge, but they didn't necessarily. They weren't committed to that necessarily, that pick. But if it was defensive tackle, whatever, what it'll come down to. Let me put this on the screen. What it'll come down to is how this player plays. Like that's what's going to be funny is no one's going to go back in time and give the Falcons their credit. If let's say, the guy couldn't pronounce what's his name Horo. Is that right? It's such a tough.
Yeah.
Big O. I'm calling Big O. If let's say Big O ends up being the biggest steal at defensive tackle, will anybody write into the Atlanta Falcons and apologize for all the slander they're throwing at them? Or because what if they would have taken a defensive tackle or somebody else at 8? Let me find the actual. Let's go to the NFL draft and look at maybe who they would have taken. We were curious to Odunze was on the mind, but it could have been Latu could have went. It could have been Byron Murphy, who I do like Byron Murphy a lot, but maybe it. So if Horo Big O, if Big O's better than Byron Murphy, I want a written apology from those people into the Atlanta Falcons because they got Penix Jr. and Big O. So we'll just have to monitor Big O. Big O will tell the story. If this ends up being the best move in hindsight. That's the way I think about it in fantasy too. It's like when people are like, "Don't take a quarterback early." Maybe that's why I'm also defending this move because I understand it. It's in my thought process to do these unorthodox things. But like apples to apples, if you compare what they got at the end of the day with Penix versus the flip of going Rattler later and then, getting the upgraded defensive tackle or edge or whatever.
Well, I think there's also a chance they were going to trade down and maybe still take Penix in the first, but pick up, another second rounder or something like that. But I heard today there was like 3 or 4 other teams trying to get into the top 10 or 12 to draft Michael Penix. Like Michael Penix alone, we
haven't heard.
At some point, they realized we're not going to get him if we trade down.
We haven't heard a single apology from all of the people that piled on the Detroit Lions and said the Lions absolutely screwed the draft. Would they get D grades, C grades for taking Jahmyr Gibbs inside the top 10? Where are those people now? Nowhere. Nobody came back to take accountability for that. Nobody came back to correct the record. And, people could say the same thing about this. Some people are turning their opinion around. Some big commentators, Dan Orlowski ended up saying that he slept on it, came back, and he actually understands and likes the move. And it's nice to see some people correcting the record and not just being like, I got to dig my heels in. This is what I was saying earlier. I hope that anybody here that's watching right now that has started to dig this hole, I just ask you to stop digging. Leave a little bit of a hole. That's fine. You can doubt a little bit, but don't dig such a big hole that you become a Penix Jr. hater for no reason but to just defend your stupid stance that you dug so deep that you can't get out of. That's all I'm asking you to do on this one, because this could turn out to be the most brilliant move. And then in retrospect, you can say things like maybe they shouldn't have paid Kirk Cousins because this guy's so good. Sure. But again, back to my analogy of having extra $20 to spend, and I know $20 is not this massive QB contract, but it's a pun. The $20 extra with Joe Mixon could get you Breece Hall. And if you're sitting there at the end of your draft and you've got $20 and no one's left, you didn't do a bad job of using your resources that aren't going to carry over. And so in terms of the salary cap, there is that sense of use it or lose it in a way. And granted, some teams like Jerry don't want to spend it all and they want to keep it. I understand that, and that's fine too. But this team is clearly committed to saying we want to overcommit on QB so we don't ever have the problem we've had in the past ever again. Because Arthur Blank did look a little bit confused when it went down, but I believe he's given full, decision-making to the GM and to Zach Robinson to say, what do you I want you to never allow this team to ever be searching for a quarterback again, and this is their solution. And ouch. I just know that I just know people are going to not be back to, or yeah, Gabe's top 12, sorry, top 12. I just know people are not going to be back to apologize for it. You know, they're only going to just find a new way to make fun of it. Oh, well, yeah, look, they got Kirk Cousins and they don't even use him. That's the next thing that the hater's going to say. Whatever.
It's funny, too, because I'm sure all the people are saying, you're not hearing from anyone who said there's no way Penix gets drafted in the first round. There's a ton of those.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And where are those people now that came in and said I was an idiot for saying Penix Jr. would not only go inside the first round, but I said he's a top 10 pick. You know, at least top 16 no matter what. But remember, it's like he could go as high as 6. No, he won't, Smitty.
I'll admit, I didn't know about the top 10. I'll put that out there that I wasn't sure about top 10.
But you weren't a hater to it,
round,
though. You weren't a hater to it. You didn't necessarily believe yourself, but I'm saying the people that came in hating, absolutely hating on the idea that Penix Jr. was better than they thought, and it pissed them off because that made them wrong. People are so prideful, they can't accept that they were wrong. You know, they can't come in and say, like, look at the Puka Nacua thing last year. I was wrong on Puka Nacua coming out of week 1. I said, I don't know. I don't think this can sustain he can't maintain this level. And what did I do? Instead of swallowing my pride or I guess you could say I swallowed my pride. Instead of just digging my heels in and continuing to try and predict downfall for him and be stupid about it, I just said, you know what? I was wrong. He's the real deal. He looks the real. I quickly flipped, and you can say that's a flip flopper, or you can say that's a realist and adjust and adapting and true change in behavior based on what's real, not what I want to be real. And it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, in like Sick Nasty, and I joke about it with Sick Nasty, but I'll be the first to admit, if J.J. McCarthy becomes a top 10 quarterback, I'll say I was wrong.
I've said this about Caleb, too.
Right. I'll be the first one.
I said this with Caleb, too. Now, it's going to take me a long time to like, I'm not just like one game or something. I'm not doing that. But Caleb, to me, there's a whole season we need to watch him play. And coming into his second year, if I feel differently, I will admit it, and I will say I was wrong. I'll tell everybody. I'll take a lap and everything. I don't get the sense I'm gonna be doing that. I just do not. I could care less how talented he is. Johnny Manziel was more talented than him coming out of college. Anybody wants to say differently, you're just talking to hear yourself talk. Because Johnny Manziel was the best college football player, best college quarterback pretty much ever. So let's not be silly.
Wasn't he supposed to go top 5 before he got caught in Hollywood partying, like right before the draft?
I forget some of the draft.
A lot of people thought he could go top 5. Yeah, there was rumors.
Johnny Manziel was just a walking disaster. You know, Josh Rosen, you could see the writing on the wall, too, that he was probably not going to work out. His attitude stunk.
Yeah.
It was absolutely pitiful. And when the Cardinals took him, I was so pissed off. I was like, this kid is going to bust. And everyone's like, no, Josh Rosen's good. He's really good. And then when Kingsbury came in and took Kyler Murray, I absolutely loved Kingsbury for that. Having the balls to say after 1 year, they took Rosen. After 1 year, they said, we're moving on from Josh Rosen. We're not going to do this Mac Jones thing. We're not going to do this Danny Dimes thing where we're going to keep dragging it out because we have to. It took balls for Kingsbury to do that. And that's why I like Kingsbury a lot. Manziel had Mike Evans and a ridiculous line. Mr. TD, don't even try and act like, don't even try. You're going to make yourself look like a fool if you try and say that Caleb's a better prospect. It doesn't matter. Like, the NFL reacted differently appropriately to not make him this consensus number 1 overall pick. But like college, like what he did in college, I mean, this guy, you know, you could even say like Tebow, what Tebow did in college. You know, like just because you're great in college does not mean anything. You know, it means it helps support a case that you might be able to translate it. But also, Tom Brady's an excellent example as to why it goes the flip side. You know, you can bring so much talent to the table, but at the NFL, how are you going to process it? How are you going to be, you know, how are you going to... Trey is celebrating 11 months. Watch out for Javon Baker. I do like him.
Yep, he's got a floor, but he's got very high upside.
Yeah. I like Baker. Baker's pretty decent. Probably my favorite. I like Mitchell. I like Mitchell a lot. Keon Coleman, we talked about that earlier. I have a little bit of worry. I'm not gonna lie. I have a little bit of worry about him feeling very.
Yeah, I was watching.
Very Jameis Winston like. He did.
Aloof. He's aloof.
Yeah. What's the best way to describe it? Because I'm not trying to say anything negative.
Out there. No, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say he. Yeah, I'm not trying to say he can't translate. I guess I'm just saying, like, I wonder, I don't know. I like him a lot. His situation is really nice. His miles per hour on the field, his route running was better than any other prospect, even though he ran a slow 40. So that was nice that data was there to kind of tell the story properly about his speed and his quickness, rather. Hit more higher miles per hour than anybody else. I think that Josh Allen... So nature versus nurture, the whole psychological debate. This is in psychology, and I love talking psychology here. In psychology, the question is, did the player become nurtured into a top, NFL talent, or did he have the nature to be a top 10 NFL talent? Case in point, Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel's talent was there, but the nurture, the intangibles that had nothing to do with that, like how did that affect it? Obviously it overwhelmed the other side and he never excelled. Josh Allen, the nature versus nurture mainly being environment, mostly though. So your environment, so is Keon Mitchell, is the nature, the innate pieces of this man, are they Marvin Harrison Jr. capable? No. But is his situation, the nurture, going to turn him into something way bigger than he ever could have been? Hence how I think some players were created in this National Football League, like Arian Foster, who I love, one of my favorite players of all time. You take Arian Foster out of Houston, you take Priest Holmes, who I love. Priest Holmes is a very talented guy. You take Priest Holmes out of KC, these guys would have never been as good in lesser situations that were not, somewhat close to those situations. You take LaDainian Tomlinson out, probably still is elite. Probably wouldn't be as elite, but he would be still elite. Take Calvin Johnson out of Detroit. Hell, you take Calvin Johnson out of Detroit, he might have been better, because we don't even know what the real Calvin Johnson looked like because of all the turmoil he went through. But those are cases of nature being way better than nurture. If the nurture side of Calvin Johnson was is equivalent to the nature side, we might see a guy that was 2 times better than Calvin Johnson. So my whole point is that Keon Mitchell gets nurtured so much by the Josh Allen environment that he becomes something amazing that he never would have become without it, but he evolves into it. I think Diggs was a great example of that. Diggs came from Minnesota on a high, looking pretty solid. No one really knew how good he was going to be. Dare I say he was Michael Pittman Jr. good. That's kind of how I felt of
pretty good comp.
Diggs coming out of Minnesota. I don't think he would have ever been better than Michael Pittman Jr. if he stayed in anywhere else or went anywhere else. But going to Buffalo, he was turned into Stephon Diggs as we know it. And I think Keon Mitchell has a chance to do that. We'll just kind of see how much he can grow. Tough to say. Keon Mitchell's probably got the most upside. McConkey's got some really good upside. Someone said earlier in the chat, garbage
Keon
time.
Coleman.
What'd I say? Keon Mitchell?
Keon Mitchell. Now, if you
Keon
put
Coleman.
those two together, they'd be really good.
Keon Mitchell.
Keon
Coleman, sorry. Keon Coleman. McConkey's also a real nice prospect and a pretty nice home. Someone said earlier in the live stream, garbage time, definitely. Like there's some good garbage time work. Maybe wait for him. If let's say the team is up but you could also say the flip side though.
Herbert's gonna like him.
Yeah, he should. But you could also say, that they just don't have the consistency, and they're going to run the clock out, and maybe there isn't. I don't know. Maybe there isn't garbage time.
That's what I'm just gonna say.
It could go either way. It could go either way. I don't. All I'll say is this: the targets that got vacated, not all of them would have gotten filled. I know everybody wants to say X number of targets were vacated, therefore they need to be replaced. Look, you might be looking at half the targets for the wide receivers now. Like, you don't really know that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. McConkey's really, really good, but I like him a lot. I just don't know if this is the best spot for him. I think people are hoping it is. I think anytime you become the team's number one wide receiver, in theory, it sounds really, really good. But of course, Brandon Rice is also there, Jerry Rice's son, and who's to say he doesn't somehow get a better kind of role in the offense, or maybe Quentin Johnson takes a little baby step forward, and they're all just kind of mediocre together. Like, you know what I mean? Like if this is a numerical, I guess I should say, with the locker room. I don't think it's alphabetical; it's numerical, I believe. So number 1, 2, 3. If this is a numerical locker room where nobody's better than the other, it wouldn't surprise me if the wide receiver room was treated as such in terms of targets, and it's just going to be very, very, very bland across the board. I like the odds of McConkey being the best option fantasy-wise on this offense. I'm just not 100% sold. Wide receivers, I'm trying to think of what other wide receiver makes the most sense. Rookie wise, I'd have to say
I think you're right that BTJ could be a little inconsistent, but I forget where I saw it, but whoever was saying it made a good point that Gabe Davis is going to help that situation. Like, imagine if Gabe Davis was able to run those routes that they had Ridley running, and Ridley could have run the routes he's meant to,
Yeah, I hear you. Let me put these players on screen. We'll go down to Keon Coleman. Let me screenshot this. Keon Coleman.
Who else was on the phone?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Sebastian, you're live. What's up, man?
Yeah, I was going to say, I honestly think with the Penix being drafted, I really do think Bijan is the safest top 5 pick in redraft this year.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I can definitely get behind that, my guy. I think
that's all I had.
I think having 2 QBs is just I don't understand how people are even bothered by it at all. I don't know why people are even saying anything negative about it. Who cares? I get they could have potentially got, let's see here. Hold on, that's the wrong graphic. Let me close all this out. And let me put the wide receivers. So these are the wide receivers and their landing spots. If anybody, I know not everybody's totally caught up. Some people are working. They don't have all the information. So I just want to throw all the wide receivers and their landing spots on the screen here. All right, here's pretty much everybody. These guys got drafted last. So Polk went to the Patriots. I like Polk a lot. Travis likes Polk a lot. It's a really good landing spot. So here are the wide receivers. So Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunze, Brian Thomas Jr., Lad McConkey, Malachi Corley in New York is interesting. I like that. McConkey's in L.A., Brian Thomas is in Jacksonville. I don't love that spot, to be honest. Dunze is a horrible spot for redraft. We'll see in Dynasty. It could be appealing in Dynasty. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not only the number one wide receiver in Dynasty because of his landing spot, but he's already got that talent anyway. That's the perfect example of nature and nurture together colliding for an absolute. Like if I have to say what makes somebody an elite wide receiver 1 overall is like Bijan Robinson and Marvin Harrison Jr. I kind of feel like those are my 2 favorite players this year because you have the most unbelievable amount of talent that's arguably the best in the league, and you have one of the best situations for both of them positionally. And so I love Marvin Harrison Jr. He's my number 1 in Dynasty and redraft, or my number 1 in Dynasty and he's probably number 5 in redraft, honestly. McConkey in LAC, like I said, is, decent. Corley in New York is limiting, but nice. It's good football move, good for the Jets, good for Garrett Wilson, good for everybody. But it could hurt Breece Hall a little bit. I don't think it'll be too much, but he is definitely like a Deebo Samuel yak yard machine that you could dump off to. But will Aaron Rodgers even be throwing to him his rookie year that much? I don't know. Troy Franklin is a really, really interesting pick by the Broncos because he gets paired up with his college quarterback, Bo Nix. So, I mean, that's like really cool, in a way. So we'll see what Denver is able to do. I really like what Denver did, even though I can't stand Sean Payton right now for some reason. Well, for a lot of reasons. A.D. Mitchell going to the Indianapolis Colts. Ricky Parasol to the Niners. Roman Wilson to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is interesting. Xavier Worthy to the KC Chiefs. We haven't talked about that a lot together, Travis. I don't know, Sebastian, if you mentioned it. Does anybody have concerns that the expectations are too high for Worthy in year 1?
Yes, they're way too high.
Because I mean, how is he taking, unless Rice is removed, which he could be, but until he is, he's not taking the job from Hollywood or Rice out the gate. And he probably isn't taking the job from Tony even though we all believe Tony's going to fail. It's like Veach loves him. The GM for the Chiefs loves him. So there's a real good chance that Worthy's a return specialist with the new kickoff rules at first, and they start to ease him in. But mid-season, he could be on fire, especially if Rice is out. But what do you guys think? Let me start with Travis, then I'll go to Sebastian.
Just real quick, and I'll let Sebastian go. But just going by odds, they're due to hit on one of these receivers, but it seems like they take one of these, kind of undersized receivers that, is supposed to be really fast and get down the field from Mahomes, and they never hit on them. Sky Moore and lots of Nico Hardman, and, it's like they keep trying and keep missing. So maybe, the odds will play out, but I think he can be all right, but I'm not sure he's going to be. I think some people like the whole, he's the next Tyreek is just ridiculous. He's not close.
Sebastian?
Yeah, I mean, his speed profile alone, people are already putting the Tyreek title on him, and then his playmaking, he's got to compete with Tony. I still think Tony's very talented, but he just gets in his own head. And then he's still got to learn the system. Andy Reid likes to have 10 pass catchers per game. There's just way too many variables, even with Rice. We don't know how long Kelsey's going to be around. We don't know what the running back room's going to look like. For me, it's a fantasy bust this year, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially because the ADP is going to climb higher and higher.
So my take, I already kind of said it, but I'll just reiterate that, I think it's a late season rise if it is one. And I'm not gonna, I won't be as pessimistic as Sebastian, who just spoke on it. I'll just say, initially I agree with him, but if Rice gets suspended, then I think we'll see what he is, and I'm not gonna count him out. I just don't. I don't think he's coming out the gate strong. You know, it'll take a little while. Xavier Legette in Carolina is really interesting. I'm excited to see how that one develops. I think that he has a shot to outperform Parasol, Mitchell, maybe Franklin. Franklin has a shot to outperform people too. Corley, because Corley's kind of a 2. Brian Thomas Jr. I like a lot, but he's in a crowded room. Wouldn't be shocked if Legette outscored like all those guys. Malik Washington in Miami, probably not going to be anything impactful right away unless injury strikes, which is certainly capable like mid-season, right? So maybe mid-season, I don't want to say monster, but mid-season emergence, and we see what he is. He's really good. He's kind of like a little Tank Dell, but we'll see what happens. He definitely, he's playing in the right wide receiver room if you're expecting injury, because Waddle and Tyreek Hill are capable of getting banged up. So that's an interesting spot, but not great initially. Baker's solid. You got Baker and you got Polk. Polk is right over here. So New England's got... What I love about New England is they've got 2 shots at wide receiver and they got 2 shots at quarterback. Now, granted, May's not getting unseated by Joe Milton, but the fact that you have Joe Milton in case May were to get hurt, or let's say May did bust, you got 2 shots at wide receiver, you got 2 shots at quarterback. It's a pretty nice situation. Keon Coleman, probably out of everybody I've listed, Neighbors, Harrison, Adunze, and then kind of like Lad McConkey, then it gets really sketchy, but there's upside. There's just a mix of good and bad for everybody. I think Keon Coleman stands out the most because of his situation. And his profile to a lot of people is still 4, 5, 6-ish for a lot of NFL scouts. So this is definitely like my 4, I think, right now. If I had to throw... Or 4 or 5. I'd probably put McConkey and Keon Coleman tied for the number 4 wide receiver after Harrison, then Neighbors, then Adunze. And I like Neighbors more than Adunze in redraft and in Dynasty because he's the lone guy. Whereas Adunze's got 3 mouths there's 3 mouths to feed in that wide receiver room. And I just don't know that it even fix itself in year 2. You know what I mean? So therefore Neighbors will have a better year 2. He could have Shedeur Sanders as quarterback or something. So Neighbors, it goes Harrison, Neighbors, Adunze. Then it's a tie between McConkey, Keon Coleman, and maybe BT, maybe Brian Thomas Jr. in there. And Franklin's right up there. A.D. Mitchell's kind of right up there. Parasol is not going to get the playing time he needs at first unless injury strikes. Worthy eventually could climb up with the 4th wide receiver group, the tied for 4th wide receiver group. Over on this side, Brandon Rice is an intriguing player for the Chargers. I like him, Jerry Rice's son. Luke McCaffrey, interesting for Washington. He's got the ties to the McCaffreys and the Shanahans and all that. So you got the GM Adam Peters coming from San Francisco. They got McCaffrey. They have huge ties to all those guys. So this is interesting that McCaffrey lands in Washington, and he's an interesting prospect, but I think he went at 3rd round pick 37, and there were some other guys like 3rd round Franklin. Franklin was one that I couldn't believe that they didn't pick Troy Franklin, and there were some other players too that I felt like were a little bit better options than Luke McCaffrey. But maybe they see something in him, and I kind of trust Peters. So if Peters sees something in him, we might need to take another look at Luke McCaffrey just because Adam Peters loves him. We got Johnny Wilson. We'll see what he can do. He's okay. And then, as I said, Jalen Polk with New England's fantastic. Some people had him. Some scouts had him as like a 4, 5, or 6 overall wide receiver. So if he is the real deal and you're pairing him with May and you got Ramondre, maybe this New England team is going to be a lot better than we thought early on. Devontae Walker is a Raven, not really thinking much of that. Cowing in San Francisco, not he could get cut for all we know. That's it. I mean, those are the wide receivers.
So with Brian Thomas, is it mostly the landing spot? You really don't like him in Jacksonville, or do you think he needs to learn some more routes?
I like him.
Become more polished before he was successful.
I like him. I mean, he's in the conversation for that 4. I think I said so. It was Coleman, McConkey, and then then Brian Thomas and Worthy are kind of like, I need to see something to get him in there, but they're definitely like in my thought process, right? Franklin's kind of in the thought process to get in there, but for right now, I'll put Coleman and McConkey kind of by themselves with Brian Thomas Jr., Franklin, and Leggett kind of grabbing onto the tier, and they're trying to climb up into it.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay.
I like BT a lot. It's what we got to remember, guys, is we can't just be excited because, I don't know, he landed with our team, or I've been very objective about the Cardinals for years for that. I know a lot of people think I'm not one to talk right now, being excited about Trey Benson, being excited about Marvin Harrison Jr., but it's just perfectly aligning for the Cardinals, and those are great players, great spots. Brian Thomas Jr., I mean, as good as he is, he slipped, right? Why did he slip? I don't want to say 23 is a big slip, but, he's banged up a little bit. I heard
some of it was, I was going to say labor and surgery he's having.
Yeah, he's still like,
back now.
Yeah, he's still like healing from surgery, I guess. Some say, we don't fully know. The medicals sometimes don't get totally told to us, and there's not a lot on it, to be honest. I feel like some of it might even be stretched, but he could have went higher than 23. Not that 23 was like a huge fall, but the other thing you got to remember is that Ridley was in that exact spot, and he didn't do anything. So, well, who's to say they aren't just going to use him as the burner to stretch the field again?
They could.
And so, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that I don't like him. I know people are wondering why you love BT. Why don't you like him? But tell me why he's safe in Jacksonville. We got a couple of comments. Sebastian actually is the one that said it. BT feels safer than Worthy, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're not wrong necessarily. No one's wrong or right yet, but it convinced me, Sebastian.
I agree with him on that.
I don't think you're wrong on it, but just convince me of why BT isn't going to be used like Ridley.
I mean, even if he's so much younger than Ridley, I mean, it's the first thing he's going to learn when he gets to the league.
Yeah, but that doesn't explain it. That doesn't explain anything that he's younger. Like, why? How are they going to utilize him in a different way than they utilize Ridley? No, I want to know Sebastian's take on it. He's a burner.
Okay.
He's a burner. Ridley was stretching the field. It kind of fits the bill that they're going to send him down, go north, pal, and stretch the field. And there's nothing wrong with stretching the field if you're going to get a lot of targets. But the problem is if you're only getting 3 or 4 very unlikely to connect targets, the high percentage of connection and conversion on some of, like, Ridley would run like 3 or 4 routes. He'd be like wide open in the end zone or barely get his hands on it, and he'd be contested and be like overthrown or whatever. Ridley would have had such a better year had he connected on like 5-6 of these very close call plays. But the problem is if you get 4 deep balls that are low conversion, high likelihood to not succeed, you end up with 0-point weeks. You end up with 20 yards instead of, how many times did we come in and go, Ridley would have had 110 and 2 touchdowns. Ridley would have had 90 yards and a touchdown. About four or five times.
Every week.
About 4 or 5 times at minimum, we came in saying Ridley would have had 90 yards and a touchdown. Ridley would have had 2 touchdowns and 50 to 100 yards. So I'm just a little worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think T-Law will take a step forward.
Hold on 1 second, Travis.
I think
I'm
BTJ,
still. Sebastian, go ahead and answer.
T-Law will take a step forward, and I think BTJ, it'll be the first thing he learns, and I think he'll get that rapport. Because, I mean, Ridley was question marks like the whole time.
First thing he learns what?
The suspension.
First thing he learns what?
Whatever routes they want him to run.
I don't think it's necessarily anything to do with route running. I think BTJ is a better athlete.
Man, Rob, we can never hear you, bro. Rob, we can never hear you. I know you call from Hawaii, but don't they have like volume over there? Like by the time it gets to us, we can't even hear you.
So what I'm saying is this: I don't think it's necessarily as far as route running. Is BTJ is a better athlete than Ridley at this point in his career. So I think that's going to be the difference. He's faster, he's bigger, he's stronger.
Okay.
And that's just the bottom line. And he has way more upside than Ridley had. But if he's playing the role that Ridley is playing, man, I'm in. bro, because I like y'all said, it was a few times really would have just had some crazy weeks. He just missed here and there. If BCJ can make those plays, I think it's no doubt that he's going to be the number one in that offense.
No offense, Sebastian. I feel like you didn't answer my question. I feel like at least I got, and maybe this is what you were trying to say. You're saying the conversion rate would go up because BT's going to grab these contested balls. I guess I accept that conclusion, and I love BT, so I'm not like against this. I'm just merely telling you what concerns me. What concerns me is we just saw misuse, and we saw Trevor Lawrence. As much as I take responsibility for the law dog milk and for him not being the real deal, I'm excited about him. I hope he can kind of prove me wrong a year later, but he did overthrow Ridley on a lot of stuff too. But maybe it's harder to overthrow BT. You know, like BT is able to, like, he's got nice size, he's got nice catch radius, and he's very quick, he's very speedy. Like you said, he's younger, he's stronger, he's probably faster by a lot. And yeah, I could get behind that. I just hope that they don't necessarily coin him as the field stretcher. I hope they realize he's valuable across the middle of the field too, not just Christian Kirk, because Christian Kirk would just mop up all this easy, light work, and Ridley would just stretch the field, and it was so frustrating. But I accept that, and I think that's what Sebastian was trying to say too, and I'm fine with that. That's why I did put him. I didn't call him a bust. I love BT, but he is in my hanging on to my tier of 2 or 3 guys that are right below the big. Actually, Marvin Harrison Jr. is in a tier by himself, and then it's tier break, Neighbors, Adunze, specifically because I don't love their landing spots right now. Neighbors could be quietly amazing in a year from now if Shedeur Sanders is in New York. And somebody tell me a team that's going to have a worse record than the Giants. I'm open. I'm not saying.
I think it's set up good.
Does anybody feel like the Giants are not the worst team in the league? Because the Carolina Panthers would have been up there, but they had an A+ draft. So they're no longer in my bottom of the barrel type of team. Does anybody have?
Dion would like him to go to New York too.
The Saints are a little bit more talented, so I'm going to say they aren't the worst team in the league, but they could have a bad year.
They got Rattler too.
Anybody else have a team? Anybody? Anybody have a team? I think the Giants are.
Maybe the Patriots.
I think they'll be a lot better than.
They're not taking a quarterback.
I mean, they got.
I don't think they give up on May that quick.
I think they got 2 quarterbacks. They got 2 wide receivers. They got Ramondre.
Tennessee, if Levis fails.
Yeah, but I think they still.
Tennessee is going to be good, man. I think Tennessee is going to actually.
Rob, we can't hear you. I don't know what you're doing with your phone, bro. Every time you go so far away.
And I think Tennessee is going to be mid.
I'm just curious. What are you doing? Every time you do it, what are you doing? Are you putting the phone down and walking away, or what's going on?
No, man, it's my headphones. You know, it's crazy because some people say they can hear it, and then other people say they can't. So sometimes they pick and choose when they want to work.
Okay, maybe I wouldn't use them when you call in, just because we can never hear you. But then you fix it, and then we can hear you fine. But it's like
I just took the headphones off.
Okay, yeah.
So now you can hear me perfectly.
I would say.
Hey, Smitty, how you feeling about Adunze?
I look at like I said earlier. If Adunze was drafted to the Cardinals and Marvin Harrison Jr. went to the Giants, Marvin Harrison Jr. is so good, I'd be torn. But you give Adunze a fantastic landing spot, and he could flourish into a top 5 wide receiver, Jamar Chase like. I'm glad I no longer have that dilemma, to be honest with you, because it would have been a very, very tough dilemma for me. But I don't like him in redraft, bro. Is there a chance he becomes absolutely phenomenal player coming out of year 2? Maybe even coming out of year 1 and year 2 is amazing. Maybe, but the problem is like that wide receiver room is not going to get any. He's still going to be very crowded. Even if, let's say, Keenan Allen drops off, they get rid of Keenan Allen after 1 year, even, or he drops off. DJ Moore's still there. Not saying that Adunze can't outplay him, but it's tough to know. What's DJ Moore's contract?
I have no idea. I do know I took over an orphan and I got a Doomsday at the 104, and then I waited on QBs because I just seen how this year went. Bro, I got Penix and Nix back to back at the 204 and the 205, and I had no QBs. I'm pretty hype about that one.
Yeah, let me put it this way. Before, it could have been very close in the scenario that I painted. Doomsday with Kyler in Arizona and Marvin Harrison Jr. in a bad spot, but like hoping his dynasty value were to climb. Here's DJ Moore's contract, by the way. He's signed through, there's a potential out in 2024, which they obviously won't use. He's an unrestricted free agent in 2026. They're not getting rid of him. He's a very, very nice player. The money amount is not even that bad. He's getting paid $15 million and $14 million for a player like that. That's very cheap in today's new market. So they're not getting rid of him. So you got a crowded receiver room for at least 2 years now. Let me put it this way. I would give up a Doomsday and at least one future first rounder for MHJ without batting an eye. And I probably would give up more. I'd probably give up multiple first rounders and the Doomsday pick to get to 1.1. That's how good MHJ is to me. But that doesn't mean I don't love a Doomsday. I don't love his spot. It's very crowded. Keenan Allen, what's Keenan Allen's contract? Because
he's done after this year. Next year is free agent.
Yeah. So it does free up a little, which is nice. But what's Caleb looking like? How have they developed him? I don't know.
I was going to say it all depends on Caleb.
Yeah. Let's say I'm wrong on Caleb. Let me put it that way, Rob. If I'm wrong on Caleb and he's at least a fantasy football machine and they're still having trouble making the playoffs or winning their first game, and we're questioning that, but Caleb is a good fantasy. And I've already said that that's possible. I don't want anybody to think I'm saying Caleb doesn't have talent. Fields got removed and sent packing, and he still produced fantasy football numbers, right? So, like, Caleb could still do well from that. People are going to say, if Caleb goes out and has a 300-yard game and 2 touchdowns in week 1 and 2 INTs or whatever, 1 INT, there's still that possibility that they lose with Caleb and he still folds later due to whatever, but he could still produce. If I'm wrong on Caleb, and here's Keenan Allen, he's an unrestricted free agent in 2025. So yes, this is his last year, but they could always bring him back. But if I'm wrong on Caleb, with DJ Moore there, I mean, doesn't he feel like, I don't know, what would his ceiling be?
Yeah, that's a problem. Like, if he was the only guy there and you were just getting tons of targets, you could have a higher ceiling, but you've got to share him.
I don't think I could even put him in the tier with, you've got JJ, Lamb, Chase, MHJ, St. Brown, and then it's like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are the first like stop we get where there's 2 wide receivers that are kind of like, which one's going to be better? It's probably AJ Brown, but you're like debating it. I think like Devontae Smith, something in between Devontae Smith and AJ Brown is your safe bet for a Doomsday in year 2. If he's the real deal and if Caleb's the real deal. They both have to be the real deal, and you'll get above Devontae Smith, maybe slightly below AJ Brown. But I don't think you could get fully AJ Brown numbers because DJ Moore is an excellent wide receiver, man. You know what? I don't know if you guys caught this, but Caleb, when Caleb was talking today or yesterday about the team, he left DJ Moore out of it. He didn't even mention DJ Moore's name. They said, Caleb, what do you think about this talent you're surrounded with? He's like, we got a Doomsday, we got DeAndre Swift, we got Cole Kmet, we got all those guys. And we're gonna do good. We're gonna do good things.
DJ Moore wanted to keep Fields.
He didn't say a thing about DJ Moore. Why? What? Like, did he just misspeak, or how do you forget about DJ Moore?
Mad he wanted, DJ Moore wanted to keep Fields, so
quarterback.
What, Rob?
Yeah.
DJ Moore was backing Justin Fields to stay being the Bears quarterback.
Yeah, maybe
that's probably why.
Maybe there's bad blood. Maybe
honestly, I think that Caleb, he handpicked Roma Dunze, man.
Yeah, it was like
Caleb
a Tank Dell.
Caleb is a big Roma Dunze fan. So who's to say that Rome won't be their receiver one?
It's a good point.
You know, if guys letting them fall to 7 in rookie drafts, I'm taking them everywhere.
And good point, bro.
He's my wide receiver 3, but if they're gonna let him fall, bro, I'm taking him before any quarterback not named JD5. And if I got to take Caleb, I'm trading out because I don't think he's worth the one-on-one. I think that should be Marvin Harrison. Period. I don't care.
I know. I sound like the biggest Caleb hater, and I probably am. I guess. Like I can at least admit it. I don't hate him as a person. I don't hate him as a person at all. This is all about prospecting for me. I don't have a single like hateful bone in my body. Even Shanahan, I don't hate. If Shanahan was in trouble, I'd save him in a millisecond. Like I hope people understand that. But I look from a analyst perspective, from a prospecting perspective, I don't hold back, and that's all there is to this. There's nothing deeper than that. So I don't hate Caleb as a person. I wish him well. He seems like a very nice guy and a genuine person. So like, I'd do whatever I could if Caleb was in need right now and I could help him. I would do that 100%. Just wanted to very, very much clear that up.
Sure.
But did you guys see that? Did you guys see him even at the Laker game? They showed the video of him. He's looking around like he's looking for somebody when the camera was on him. He's constantly doing that. It drives me nuts. He's
non-ball.
He's constantly looking around everywhere. Who's looking at me? Where's Mama? Oh. As a Bears fan, I respect your take, Smitty. Thank you, Aldi.
I actually think Caleb is going to be good. I just don't think he's the best quarterback. He's going to be the best quarterback in this draft.
Yeah.
I think that JD5 has the highest upside. I think Michael Penix is the best pure passer.
Michael what? What'd you call him? Michael's what?
Michael Penix is the best. But I think Caleb is probably the most talented. I don't know. I mean, his highlights are crazy, but
yeah, but like even the highlights, you see
highlights are crazy. So.
You see Caleb holding onto the ball for like 10 seconds, man. You can't do that in the NFL. And he's running around. He's going all over the place. And there's this one play in particular that sticks out to me because they always show it on highlights. Where he's scrambling toward the sideline and his wide receiver's on the sideline as well, but there's a wide open player like 10 yards away. He doesn't throw it to him, and he throws this ball into the crowded, contested three defenders, and his receiver grabs it and pulls it in, and it's a great play. It's definitely an amazing play, but it's like that's like the epitome of interception and failing at the NFL level. Though you can't hold on to the ball, you're not going to get all that time to scramble around. Unless you're Lamar or you're a savvy veteran that's proved himself. Like, maybe he becomes that. It's possible. But we'll see. It'll certainly be the first player with his personality that succeeds at the NFL quarterback position. And maybe he's the first person to kind of go down this, like, Hollywood road, you know. And there's nothing wrong with his personality. Okay, there's nothing wrong with him as a person. There's not, but it's in terms of being a field general in the NFL, or like I said, if you were in the trenches in war and your lieutenant that you're supposed to be following into battle is quirky and hard to like, get your handle on their personality, it's hard to trust them going into war and following them into battle. That's kind of the nature of the quarterback position. Calm, cool, collected. Jalen Hurts is the epitome of calm, cool, collected. If you got into a huddle and Jalen Hurts was like, hey guys, I know we're down, there's only 4 seconds left, but we're going to win this. I'm going to snap it on 3. I'm throwing it to Travis Rowe. He's going to be in the back of the end zone. He's going to catch it, and we're going to win this game. Let's go do it. We're going to celebrate after. I'll see you on 3. Go. Like, just calm. Caleb will go in and go, who's watching me? Who's in the stands? Hey, Caleb, we got 4 seconds to call this. Here, on 3. Don't mind my painted fingernail. On 3. The Bears. Like that. Is there a Bears fan on the phone right now? No? Can I get a Bears fan to call in real quick, please? I just have a question. I want a diehard Bears fan to call in. Diehard Bears fan, please call in. Matto, it's your. I don't care if you're in bed and the missus is asleep. You get out of bed, you go to the bathroom, you close the door, you turn the shower or water on, and you make a phone call, young man. Phone number is on screen.
Caleb is Patrick Mahomes. The
Huh?
analyst said he was Mahomes.
No, he's not.
No,
Mahomes.
I'm just kidding.
Someone did have a good point once and said that, like, did you think Mahomes' personality or the way he talked was going to translate? And it was a really good comment at first because I'm like, I would never have guessed him to be a star quarterback in the National. But, like, he's still a very collective, calm, even-headed, like, he there's just because he talks funny. Like, like there's nothing else quirky about him. His family. But, like, he's definitely, like, leader. He conveys leadership. Hopefully a Bears fan calls in. I have a legitimate question for a Bears fan. Let's see.
Dave's calling in. He just asked for the number.
Who did?
What do you think about Franklin and Nick?
Dave.
I like Nix and Franklin together. I think more teams should be exploring this. Bring in your wide receiver crew, your quarterback, and your top wide receiver. I think this is a really good move. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, like it should be replicated more.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, there's
That's why I thought the Patriots should have drafted Tej Walker.
I'm sorry, rock out, super chat, rock out.
I'm good.
Stroud wanted Ricky Parasol. Yeah, Stroud did want Ricky Parasol. Look, we all like Ricky Parasol. The Niners made an excellent draft selection, and I like I said, I went on Rogers Live and I said you should draft Ricky Parasol if you get rid of Debo or Ayuk. Problem is they drafted him without getting rid of receivers. Hold on, 925 caller. Who is this and where are you calling from?
It's Dave from California.
Okay, you're not from Chicago though. Are you a Chicago Bear fan?
I was calling in to talk about the Brian Thomas thing.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry I sounded disappointed. I thought we were having a Bears fan calling. Okay, tell me about BT, bro.
No,
Thank you,
I
rock
don't
out.
think he'll be put in the Ridley rule.
Rock out to the
that
moon.
We saw last year because Zay Jones was hurt for like a lot of the year last year, and I looked up on Sleeper, like 4 of the 5 good weeks that Ridley had were when Zay Jones was playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Problem. Gabe Davis to fill that role too.
Yeah. Problem is though.
Yeah.
We don't know what role he's gonna play now, and how much they need him to stretch the field. So it's tough to know with the moving parts too. That's all. I mean, it's a good point, but it's also a point of concern. Like we don't know what this now does. This wide receiver room looks different, and we honestly don't know what BT is going to be asked to do. And there's a real possibility they throw him into that stretch the field role. But to Rob's point, maybe he does great with it. Maybe he's able to pull in passes. Maybe Trevor Lawrence gets more accurate. Maybe Trevor Lawrence takes a big step forward. I really hope he does. I like him a lot.
I think he could.
Maybe he can be Trevor Lawrence, T. Higgins.
And if Gabe Davis does take on that role of stretching the field, then Brian Thomas becomes. You what?
That's all Gabe Davis is good at.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe this does make BT reliable, but there's still 3 mouths to feed there, though. It's hard to imagine. I don't know. Maybe it is.
I think it's Kurt and BTJ, and then ETN is just going to get all of the touches off the backfield. It's going to be Kurt, BTJ, Ingram, and ETN. And Davis might have an explosive game here. He's never been a consistent player.
Yeah,
Smitty is right about Kirk, though, where T-Law sometimes just pepper Kirk.
Yeah, Kirk is the one.
14 balls.
Kirk is the one that just gets all the easy little lobs.
And Ingram too. 100 catches last year.
Yeah, tough to say what's going to happen. I don't think it's an easy situation to predict. I'm hopeful, but I'm hopeful enough to put him like in a good spot. I'm not like calling him a bust. I love BT, but I just don't know that. Like when he landed there, I was like, why is everybody really excited about it? It's an okay spot. Like if Odunze went there. Let me completely be honest. I would probably convince myself that he's just gonna. I don't know if I'd be wrong though, but I would convince myself that he would rise above everyone else and just command the most. But I think part of me would still be worried that it's crowded. But still, he would be such a superior athlete compared to everybody else. And I'm not saying BT can't be. That Odunze would outshine everyone, but I still would be a little worried about 3 mouths to feed, or 4 with Ingram, 5 with, and the fact that Trevor Lawrence struggled a little bit. Let me go to Bob from Cali, then Dave from, who was I just speaking to?
Was it speaking to me, Dave?
Dave, okay. Okay, Dave, appreciate you calling in, bro. And I'm hopeful for BT. I'm not a BT hater at all. I like the spot. I just don't love it yet, but it could grow on me. Thanks, Dave. Bob from Cali. We got Dave from Cali, now Bob from Cali.
I think Caleb could bring it all together, and the 3 guys could work out, and he could see whatever hard work he puts in come to fruition. I just wanted to make a comment about Caleb's numbers. They dropped off the second year. Like, there was a sheer drop-off, very visible. And if you watch the bowl game that their backup Q played in, I think his name's Miller Moss. I commented on it. The dude threw for like 350-plus yards and 6 TDs. And they didn't really they may have brought in a QB. I'm not sure, but that dude looked absolutely stunning. Just wanted to comment out on that. And then I also wanted to ask, are any of the Chicago RBs worth drafting this year? And will Ayuk go to Atlanta? I feel like he could go there.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. A lot of good takes, or a lot of good questions and everything. I thought at first you're going to be a Caleb supporter, so I was like, Bears fan, I can ask you my question, but you're not. So I think you're correct. A lot of people have pointed out that Caleb Williams, big drop-off. There was some draft fatigue around Caleb because Caleb was talked about as being the top pick for so long, just like in political landscapes. The top political candidate, you get worn out, and something fresh comes along, and you're like, hey, that candidate looks nice and fresh and new ideas, and I'm tired of hearing this other person. So, like, the same thing kind of started to happen with Caleb. If you remember, people forget that, like, all of a sudden Caleb was getting a lot of doubt from people all over, and then it kind of went back, and then the Bears started locking in on him, and then everybody's like, okay, Caleb is the guy. And so there's nothing to speak about. Like, even though JD5 was starting to become a lot of other teams' potential one, a lot of other scouts' potential one, obviously some analysts' potential one, didn't matter. This is kind of like Stroud and Bryce Young. People have very foggy memories about the pecking order of those 2 quarterbacks last year. They were very much deadlocked to a lot of people. But because the Panthers, like the Chicago Bears with Caleb, the Panthers were dead set, locked on Bryce Young. And so everybody has a foggy memory when they say, oh, the Bears didn't screw up not taking Stroud or trading the pick away when they could have Stroud. They wouldn't have taken Stroud anyway. Bryce Young was the consensus one. He wasn't really the consensus one. There was definitely a divide. Just like Caleb wasn't the consensus one. Like, people are going to remember that differently too. There's more people that like Caleb than JD5, but there are tons of people that think JD5 is the number one. So that part's weird to me, that people have such a foggy memory that remember things differently. But Caleb definitely had some fatigue, definitely had a drop-off, and then even more so than that, people will talk about his lack of competition. And I know most people's defense for Caleb will be that he didn't have any help, and he did all that he did without help, but that's why he scrambled around so much. That's why he was always off schedule. That's why he held onto the ball too long. That's why his numbers dropped. I hear a lot of excuses, And those are great and all to help kind of explain it, but it doesn't give me a reason to believe the excuses are not legitimate, the concerns for me. So I'm not convinced on Caleb around all of those, excuses where other people might be accepting of it and say if you put him in a situation where he had extra help, that all those things that you're trying to excuse for him would all be, great statistical categories for him. So I agree with you. As far as Ayuk or Debo, I think Ayuk being moved is almost slim to zero chance. Mainly because of what I said on draft day, bro. The moment that the Philadelphia Eagles took they took a dump all over the 49ers draft plans, just completely uppercutted them right before the draft began. 12 minutes before the NFL draft began, the Eagles played absolute 10D chess on everybody. As you notice, I keep saying 60, 70, 8D, 10. I'm at 10D now. They're playing 10-dimensional chess with the Niners when they announce and sign A.J. Brown to an $87 million guaranteed deal. I believe it was $96 million total, $87 million fully guaranteed. And that basically was an uppercut knockout punch to the 49ers in trying to get rid of Brandon Ayuk in the middle of the draft when teams were potentially about to try and make an offer. Because guess what happens? Ayuk needs to agree to a deal that's in conjunction announced essentially with it's a tough thing to do. And you have the physical. Hollywood Brown was traded during the NFL draft on the clock. What people don't know is Hollywood Brown had already taken a physical. It was already behind the scenes. A.J. Brown, this deal makes it nearly impossible for Ayuk and the Niners, unless the Niners fold and just overpay, which will make them laughingstocks in that they could have gotten Ayuk for pennies on the dollar earlier if they just didn't do it the Niner way and signed him earlier like every other team does logically. But if Ayuk doesn't fold and the Niners don't fold, they're miles and miles apart. And that's unfortunate, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a trade is likely, because now Ayuk is less attractive to teams that were maybe willing to give up draft capital to get him. Now they got to also overpay this guy a massive amount of money. Atlanta doesn't have, I think, the luxury of going after this kind of expensive proposition when they have all this money tied up in their quarterback and they just drafted another quarterback. I think Atlanta would not be a possibility. There are very few teams left that would even be interested at all in paying that kind of money on top of draft capital, because you just saw all of these wide receivers on screen find new homes, fill these wide receiver rooms, and you essentially have no teams in need of a wide receiver anymore. So the only team I think that would be willing to trade for a wide receiver would trade for Debo, who's on a more affordable deal. Essentially, it's a dead cap hit to the Niners, but it makes sense for the Niners if they are planning to move on from Debo anyway next year. They want to get something significant for the next year's draft and have that capital, and then get Ricky Parasol some playing time, etc., etc. It makes the most sense that Debo Samuel is moved, and you don't have to worry about the contract. So it's a very easy trade to make. It just hits the Niners' pocketbook pretty hard for 2024. I would say at the end of the day, the most likely team to acquire Debo Samuel, probably the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills. I don't think the KC Chiefs are interested at all anymore, or not that the Niners would want to trade to them. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably no longer interested in that. However, you never know. And I think you've pretty much seen a lot of teams move on at this point, my guy. So bottom line, I say Debo to the Buffalo Bills or to the Ravens, or probably not at all, and the likelihood of that is probably 10%. Sorry about the long answer.
Yeah, I think the Niners flopped by waiting and not just sending either one of those receivers for a pick. Then they turn around and draft a receiver instead of offensive line. That was a big mistake. They could have got Pearsall later.
Yeah.
What about Chicago's RBs? Are any of them viable this year?
Yeah. Bro, I mean, I talked about this too. I don't know if this is my Swift. That's James Conner. Where's my Swift graphic? Swift was absolutely garbage. Here it is. In the second half of the year. And I don't think this is something that just gets glossed over and then you walk in and fresh restart. I think he got the freaking tread, ripped off his tires. He was RB 71 in week 1. I know this because I took a lot of heat week 1 after he was a moon man. He was running back 71. He was running back 4 in week 2, running back 15, 12, 10, 9. He was really good. For the most part, given what you paid, even with this 23, 14, and 25, to be running back 9 in week 11, the sum total of his year up to week 11 was pretty damn good. We got the value out of him, and the fact that we got him so late, he was a total smash. Problem is, from week 12 on, they beat him up. They stripped the tread off the tires. They ran him into the ground. They didn't throw to him. He's a versatile, morph wide receiver running back hybrid, and they basically treated him like he was Derrick Henry. And while he stayed healthy for the most part, somehow, some way, he was running back 32, 37, 52, 26, 14, and 39 in weeks 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Didn't play week 18. And it was a pretty bad ending to his season. Now, the only hope you'd have is if the Bears know how to use him and they throw to him and run him equally, and he's somehow able to stay healthy. Then I guess he could be pretty productive. I wouldn't say he's gonna bust completely, but at cost of entry, depending on where you got to buy him, I don't know that I'm that into the idea of getting attached to this running back stable, especially given you don't know that he's the full guy, the lone runner. They're just going to move everybody aside. I don't know. I'd stay away from it, bro. I don't want anything to do with it. Not at the cost. Maybe like the backup running back, like let's say Roshan or Khalil Herbert. Is Khalil still there? I'm blanking on that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, me. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Who's that said that? Who's out of here? Oh, Bob from Cali. Hopefully Bob might have been asking for some good. I think I gave him all bad news. Sorry, Bob. Bob jumped off. Damn it. Bob, I appreciate you. And Bob, I could be wrong about a lot of it. Let me go over to, so let's go back. Theo from Illinois. Theo.
Yeah, so if I have the 103 in 2 different drafts, would you take Daniels in both, or would you take Neighbors in one of them if it's Superflex?
I'd mix it up, but I'd have to see all the teams. They're all case by case. Like, what if every team needed the quarterback?
If my quarterback was, what's it called? If my QB2 was Aaron Rodgers.
In all 3
But
cases?
my QB1 is Josh Allen.
In all 3?
In one of the cases.
Oh. Well, give me all the cases. So, Josh Allen and Rodgers. Okay, that's good.
And then my other one where I took Daniels already, I just only had Jared Goff. But the one that I didn't take Daniels in, that I'm on the clock right now, that I kind of want to take Neighbors, is where I have Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers.
I take Neighbors in that one. I'm comfortable with that. I mean, as long as you got some 85 shares, you'll be okay. There's nothing wrong with diversifying, bro. Even if he's like the next Lamar and you're like kind of regretting it in that league, you're still so excited about the other leagues, bro. It's very smart to diversify whenever you can. So I would advise against going J85 in all of them. I think you could, like, if you bust on that, like if that was like Bryce Young, you'd be so pissed, man. All your season's down the drain. Don't do that.
All right, I appreciate it. And are you taking Worthy or Thomas Jr.? Like, which one do you have higher?
They're both in that. They're both, like I said, you've got McConkey and Keon Coleman. And who was my other one? Keon Coleman, McConkey.
Benson.
Well, he's a running back, but I'm trying to talk about wide receiver here. Benson, I have above all those guys. I would say it's probably, Brian Thomas Jr., McConkey, and Keon Coleman, and Franklin's kind of in there, but those are all like a bunched up group in that tier below the Roma Odunze Neighbors tier, which is below the Marvin Harrison tier, which is a tier all by itself. So they're all kind of close, bro. Like if I had the same pick, if you gave me that same scenario, I'd take like one in each of the drafts if they were all right there. I'd take Brian Thomas in one. I'd take Keon Coleman in another. I might even take a Leggett over all of them. Those guys in another. I'm definitely not passing on Odunze or Neighbors based on talent alone for any of those guys, though. No matter what, even 4 variants, I wouldn't do it. I'd still take those guys because they're the high pedigree.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but like, could Franklin be the number 4 or 5 receiver? Sure. What?
I'm taking Odunze over all of those other guys other than Marvin Neighbors.
Yeah. Ryan Hills.
I like Odunze just as much as Neighbors, but I just like the New York situation more because there's nobody taking targets from them.
Ryan Hill says Rico Dowdle to the moon. I'm gonna say.
Right, I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm
gonna disapprove that one. All right, see you, Theo. Theo dropped off. I'm gonna disapprove that one pretty easily. Is there a possibility Dowdle is better than I think? Maybe, but like, didn't we look it up? He had like 300 yards last year, man. There's nothing to show for. He had, I think it was 4.1 a carry, less than 400 yards rushing, maybe 261, if my memory serves me correct, receiving, 4 total touchdowns, 2 running, 2 receiving. The touchdown production was pretty decent to get 4 scores off of that volume, but I don't know, man. I think Rico Dowdle is a change of pace, generated fantasy football producing player that did well when he was thrown in, and defense were expecting a pass, and they ran Rico Dowdle. You know, I don't to the moon, no thank you. I don't know what would. I think this is just, Ryan, you're one of those guys, and there's nothing wrong with this. This is not a negative, Ryan. This is a good quality to have. You're one of those guys that's an optimist, and you're looking for that bargain. You know, you want to believe in the underdog, and you're looking at Rico Dowdle, and you're going, everybody's dowdling him, and you don't want to dowdle him at all. I doubt he'll be on the field. He'll be on the field doing amazing things all year long, but we'll see. Zeke Elliott is probably on the verge of signing a 1-year contract, and I've heard on good authority that's near done. And the moment that happens, he might be the running back 1 in week 1, and so Dowdle's now a backup to Zeke Elliott. But at the very minimum, they're sharing carries, so Zeke Elliott will be on the roster within, I would say, 48 hours. All right, Sebastian, any final thoughts? I got to get out of here.
Yeah, Zeke is going to be like a grandpa to Deuce Vaughn and Rico Dowdle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got. Have a good one.
All right, later, Sebastian. Travis, any final thoughts, my guy?
No, I don't think so. Oh, I was going to say, do you think we're talking about teams that could really fall out of it into the last pick? If like something like Stafford got hurt and their defense isn't up to it because of Aaron Donald retiring, do you see the Rams falling off into like a top 5 pick?
Of who? I'm sorry?
The Rams. Could you see them if Stafford got hurt early in the season?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think they have too much talent.
I mean, any team that loses their quarterback that doesn't have a proven backup, like Browning came in and did pretty well, but the Bengals floated. So the Bengals are a little better off than some teams if they lost their quarterback. But like if the Cardinals lost their quarterback, like they'd be in some trouble. You know, if the Eagles lost their quarterback, they'd get by better than most people because they have so many weapons. But they'd be in some trouble if the Niners lose Purdy. They're in major trouble. Like everybody's in trouble. So like, but I guess I would say the Rams are in no more trouble than some of those teams. But I still don't think they're worse than the Giants. I think the Giants. I think
I wouldn't go that far.
I think a headless Cardinals or a headless Rams still outperform the Giants.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I don't know. You never know, though. To be honest and upfront with everybody, I very much didn't know the Rams were going to look as good as they were last year. I was very, very skeptical. So I'm not right about everything. So I like the Rams a lot now. So clearly they changed my mind. So maybe they'll change it back. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
And I like Stetson Bennett, but man, there's like some weird stuff going on with him because they like don't even talk about it. But he was gone from the team, and
I know.
Now he's like, I don't know. Did they draft a quarterback? They should have taken Joe Milton. Good God, why did these teams take Joe Milton? Your New England Patriots were.
Yeah.
Your New England Patriots were. They were looking at the 3D chess manual that the Eagles were using. They didn't understand all of it. They got a lot of that manual applied to the draft. Joe Milton,
like a B plus.
Yeah, maybe you got like the last 10 pages of the 3D chess manual, and you read the last 3 pages.
Not quite the whole thing.
Yeah, not quite the whole thing, but damn, Joe Milton should have been on 31 other teams' radar a lot earlier, because he's just like that kind of crafty, Rattler too. The Jets did really good getting their backup quarterback. That was fantastic. I don't know what teams were thinking. What did the Rams? Did the Rams take a quarterback? Let me go to the draft tracker.
I don't think they did. Where did Pratt go again?
Prospects, quarterback. Pratt went to the Packers. I was right. That was great. That was a great.
Oh, that's right.
Great selection. Levy to the Ravens. Jets got Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis is really good. That was a good selection. Rattler was interesting for the Saints. Penix Jr., the best backup in the league in the Atlanta Falcons. Let's see here. Was there anybody on? Yeah, that was it. Jack Plummer. Is that Jake Plummer's son?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, they
So Tua Tagovailoa's son is looking at the Seahawks right now. How do you say his first name? Tulia?
I don't know.
Talia?
And then someone signed Keaton Slovis too, like as a free agent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like, I don't know why the Rams haven't done something. That's an odd one.
All right. I'll see you later, Travis. Appreciate you.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Later.
Bye.
Or did I say son? To his brother. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say son. To his son. Like Tua could have a son that old. I meant brother. It's late. Is that his son? Now, Penix Jr.'s son could play in the NFL. Penix Jr.'s son and JD5's son. Those are both older quarterbacks, granted. Let's not make fun of them. But Penix Jr.'s son just graduated college. And they almost played on the same team together. But Penix Jr. ran out of eligibility. Oh, I'm just so used to saying like Frank Gore's son, Terrell Owens' son, Brandon Rice, Jerry Rice's son. I'm just in that like mode of these bloodlines in the NFL, and then you see Tua Tagovailoa's son. It's not really his brother, but whatever. Milton can't hit the broadside of a barn door, I think is what you're trying to say, but can throw 80 yards. He can throw, bro, DJ, he can hit a barn yard, bro. He's actually, go watch his film a little bit more before you start repeating what you heard, Top Cat. You heard that from some other place, and you're just repeating it. He's actually a lot craftier on film. Go watch some film and come back. I think you'll be surprised that Milton's overlooked so much. Just because he can do backflips and he's a big boy, people like to coin him as some guy that can't throw the ball accurate. His film's kind of nice, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm really intrigued by it. I wish the Cardinals took him. I'd love to have Joe Milton as my backup quarterback. I think it's such a crafty move. You can put him in the Taysom Hill role, too, right away. There's teams that want to move him to tight end. He's not keen on that idea. Keep in mind, teams wanted to move Lamar to tight end or running back or wide receiver or whatever the hell it was. I think it was wide receiver. All right, I'm out of here. Appreciate you all. Thanks to all my super chatters. Brandon Johnson, thoughts on... Oh, God. Brandon, are you still here? Thoughts on Jalen Wright, Miami Dolphins in Dynasty. Brandon, you here? I would probably say he's the heir apparent of Raheem Mostert. It has nothing really to do with Devon Achane. Devon Achane is not going to be hampered by the presence of Wright really at all, because Achane is a Deebo Samuel player for Mike McDaniel, who architected in San Francisco Deebo Samuel's wide back role. He is the author of it. And he came over to Miami from San Francisco and created that role again via a running back playing wide receiver instead of a wide receiver playing running back in Achane. So I have very, very, very little concern. But I think that, once Mostert is done, then yeah, we're looking at Brandon. We're looking at Wright being decent upside. I would say borderline top of second round material, though. I mean, you're not taking him over in a backup role over Leggett or all these receivers, and Trey Benson's light years ahead of him. Trey Benson's gonna be a top 10 running back in my opinion. So I don't know. I like him. It wasn't a great spot though. A lot of things have to happen. Is Brandon here? Brandon, I appreciate you dropping that super chat. Hopefully Brandon's still here. All right, it's definitely a good spot in terms of having a backup for Mostert if he gets hurt, and he could look really good, but I don't know. I'm not sure that I love it long term. Thank you, Brandon. And Brandon, please let me know if you're here. Rock out, Thomas, and Space Ricky for your super chats. You guys absolutely rock. I'll see you later, Sebastian. I'll see you later, John. I'll see you later, Hoosiers. I'll see you later, Tebow. Top Cat, appreciate you. Tebow, appreciate you. Jeff Life, Superfish, Travis Rowe, Ray G in the building. Hoosiers, thank you. Lone Sentinel, appreciate you. Sebastian, thank you. Superfish dropping a $2 hauler. Please read the memberships. Thank you, Superfish. Hoosiers dropped I got to be more proactive on that. I'm sorry. Hoosiers dropped 6-month membership question. Been up on Penix from the get with Smitty. Pumped. Thank you, Hoosiers. It's a great, great landing spot for fantasy football. Please read the memberships. Oh, I just read that one. Thank you, Superfish, for dropping that $2 hauler. And then I did read this one already. Javon Baker. We do like Baker. Baker's got some good upside. Definitely good upside. Don't think he's better than Polk, but you never know. If like Polk were to bust out, then in a bad way bust, then we'd be looking at somebody that could definitely step up. I don't think Brandon's still here. Brandon, thank you for dropping that super chat, Brandon. Appreciate you. All right.
I'm a Cardinal, hey, I'm a Cardinal. 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 I'm a Cardinal, hey, I'm a Cardinal.
The Cardinals look to be rising, and MHJ is your king.
I'm a Cardinal.
See you all later. I will work on having a better MHJ. That was the only thing I could clip together. Is that a keeper? Or are we going with something different? I'll have something different for tomorrow. Maybe we keep it and have it for on standby. In Arizona, the mighty Arizona. Live Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday through Friday, live when big news breaks.
The stack above all stacks. It's time to drop the pancake emojis in the live chat. Hi, my name is B. John Robinson. I like long walks on the beach. And, well, I also like scoring.
Your Bijan card has